and gentlemen. Let me welcome you to the Candidates Night presented by the Government Affairs Council of the Tuolumne County Chamber of Commerce. Tonight, we will be hearing from the candidates running for the Tuolumne County Utilities District Board and the Tuolumne County Board of Supervisors for District 2 and District 3. So please give your full attention to these candidates who have taken time out of their busy days to take part in our informative educational evening. My name is Amelia Harrison, and I will be your moderator and MC this evening, and I am the Executive Director of the Tuolumne County Chamber of Commerce. Allow me to introduce to you our panelists. We have with us tonight Margaret Davis, who is past chair of the Governmental Affairs Council. She is past president of the Tuolumne County Chamber of Commerce. She is currently on the Government Affairs Council, and she is currently on the board for the Chamber of Commerce, as well as in her spare time, she manages the Junction Shopping Center. Then we have with us Lynn Riddle, and Lynn Riddle is our editor at the Union Democrat. And then we have Dave Souther. He's currently a director on the Tuolumne County Chamber of Commerce and a member of the Chamber's Government Affairs Council, and he is the public relations for Sonora Ford and Subaru of Sonora. Our timer this evening is Jeff Redowdy, a member of the Chamber's Government Affairs Council and the CEO of Blue Mountain Minerals. And we would like to thank Access Tuolumne Cable Channel 8 for videotaping this event for broadcast at a later time. The candidates have all been informed of today's agenda and will be seated by a random drawing of numbers, which they did. I will read a very brief, unedited intro provided by each candidate, followed by the candidates who will each have 1 minute and 30 seconds for their opening statement. And we do not have Debbie Batista with us this evening? No, okay. So at this time, I would like to introduce, let me finish. When responding to the questions, each candidate will have 1 minute and 30 seconds to respond to the question. At the end of the question and answer period, each candidate will then have 2 minutes to make a closing statement. Our timer will help the candidates keep track of time. They will be able to see the timer and the remaining time. At the end of their allotted time, I will urge the candidates to wrap up their response promptly. Index cards were available prior to the start of this forum at the front door for the audience to write their questions and submit them tonight. The public also had the opportunity to submit questions to the chamber prior to this event. All questions have been given to the panel. And please keep in mind the panel members have several questions submitted and have to have time to be able to pose the questions to the candidates seated at the dais. Finally, remember the mics are hot. This is a family-friendly show. No cursing or rude language. Candidates, this is not a one-on-one. So address the panelists and the audience in the room and those listening from their homes. If a one-on-one does occur, the aggrieved candidate will have 30 seconds to rebut. If this continues, the offending candidates will lose 20 seconds for each offense. The aggrieved candidates will gain 20 seconds for each occurrence. So, now let's get on to the reason we're all here. So, welcome with me. Our first candidate, John Maciel, is a former TUD board member. He and his wife have been residents in Twain Harte for 11 years. He has 4 years of experience on the TUD board from 2012 till 2016, and 35 years experience in the park and open space profession. Most of his 35 years in parks has been as a supervisor or manager. John?
Well, thank you. First, I'd like to thank the Tuolumne Chamber for this opportunity to... Now it is. I turned it off. All right. Do I have to start over? Okay. I'd like to thank the Chamber of Commerce for this opportunity to introduce us to the county. I am John Maciel. I was a former board member in 2012 through 2016. In 2016, I did a very poor job for a reelection. I did not express that I was really interested in wanting to stay on the board. This year, I'm trying to go in and make up for that, walking the streets, handing out cards, more signs, and to let the community know that I'm serious about wanting to be a representative on the board for them.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Okay, so next we have Ron Ringen. He has been a full-time resident of Tuolumne County for 40 years. He's been attending TUD board and committee meetings for more than 10 years. He was on the Board of Supervisors Planning Committee and the Tuolumne County Planning Commission. He has attended all of the Tuolumne County Water Agency Policy Advisory Committee meetings and the Tuolumne County Natural Resource Committee meetings. He served for 2 years as the president and is currently the treasurer of the Tuolumne-Stanislaus Integrated Regional Water Management Plan. He is currently a board of director of the Tuolumne Utility District. Ron loves Tuolumne County and understands its water's needs.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Ron Ringen, a 40-year county resident and Tuolumne Utilities District Board incumbent. I own a home inspection business, served as a U.S. Marine, and I am a TUD ratepayer. Not all board members are. My vigilance as a TUD board director and 10 years of watchdogging TUD water and wastewater management comes down to these two important points. One, ensuring our community continues to have reliable and affordable water, and two, leveraging every ratepayer dime with grants, bonds, and other funding sources to make TUD self-reliant and sustainable. TUD is more than just water. Our system is threatened by wildfire every day. During the drought, I successfully raised this issue with the state, resulting in TUD's hazard tree removal program, saving property owners and TUD thousands of dollars. Be assured that a vote for me will continue to keep water as affordable as possible while leveraging your ratepayer dollar. Now more than ever, TUD needs strong, experienced leadership. Our community deserves someone who is 100% accountable to the ratepayer. If reelected, I will continue to make every dollar and every drop of water count. I will continue to fight for local control of our water, and I will continue to keep you in safe, reliable water and wastewater services. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. And welcome with me, Jeff Kearns. Jeff was born and raised right here in Tuolumne County. His family has owned Cold Springs Water Company since 1955. He has been involved in the water business since 1981. In that time, he has constructed main lines, a treatment plant, installed and read meters, fixed water leaks, testified at the California Public Utilities Commission, dealt with the California Department of Public Health, and the California State Water Resources Control Board. He currently serves as a vice president of Cold Springs Water. He believes his experience, if elected, will translate well to the TUD board and the challenges it will face in the future. Jeff?
Thank you, Amelia. I appreciate it. First of all, I want to thank the Chamber for having this tonight. I think it's wonderful, and we got a nice crowd out here, so I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. That's, as my opening statement said, I do have almost 40 years worth of water experience. A lot of you know me as president of Yosemite Tidal downtown here, but I've been in the water business along with that ever since 1981. And I love the water business. I always have. That's why I never got out of it. And I think I can bring some real world experience to TUD, and I think the two of us would be a good fit.
Very good. Thank you very much, Jeff. All right, and last but not least, we have Jim Grinnell. Our next TUD candidate is an incumbent, an Army veteran and former management consultant. He was elected to TUD in 2012 and 2014. He served as board vice president in 2015 and president in 2016. Earlier this year, Jim earned the Governance Recognition Award from the California Special Districts Leadership Foundation. So, Jim?
Thank you very much. I come to this really honored to be here and honored to have been board president and working with all of you, working to keep the rates low. Some of you know me, some of you don't. There's a blue piece of paper in the back. It tells you a little bit about me. I got a bachelor's in engineering, a master's in industrial administration, a master's in health administration. I was the co-founder of the Senior Fair Expo back in 2010. I'm a volunteer with the VA Palo Alto healthcare system. And if you look on this, looking ahead, I look for balanced budgets, refinancing the debt, an asset management plan, a real spreadsheet to determine what the status of our assets are, what the remaining life is, what's the cost to replace it, and what it's going to take to do it, so we work on a long-term balanced budget. I advocate reasonable and affordable rates, never jeopardizing our free in perpetuity PG&E raw water supply agreement, upgrading and expanding infrastructure, including new services and more customers, improving water and sewer system to reduce outages and leaks, dredging Phoenix Lake in 2019, new water treatment plants to achieve cost reductions and system efficiencies, reducing unfunded employee pension and healthcare liabilities, which is a serious problem. And I, last week, talked to some people. I think we can save $10 million. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, panel, ready for our first question.
Well, this one is simple. It's water rates.
Imagine that.
So,
Water rates.
you each have a minute and 30 seconds.
Okay. Back in, I believe it was 2013, when the capital improvement plan was put together, and the water rates were revisited and developed. And one of the reasons why the 5-year plan was put in place, so that way it would be very visible where the money went and for what services it was being done and used. One of the things that in looking at the rates, there had been a lawsuit at that time by Southern California, and during that time, it went through and said that you had to reduce the number of tiers. You couldn't charge people for what services overabundant. So at that point, the district did not have a basic foot line to keep the doors open. So the new rate structure was based upon what is it going to keep the lights on. And then from there, it's down to 2 tiers right now, and I believe it's still 2 tiers. My hope is that we would always try and keep it as efficient, sustainable, and at the same time, the rates as low as possible, but with that in mind that we've got to be able to turn the faucets on and have water come out, and the sewer's got to be able to flush.
Thank you. And Ron.
Okay, so rates, always a touchy subject. My opinion is that, well, let me just give you a couple facts. This county is not growing. It's basically stagnant. It's graying out, like me. Got a lot of people here. Well, the biggest income in Tuolumne County, believe it or not, is Social Security. So that tells you got a lot of people that are on fixed incomes. We cannot, TUD cannot continue to think that the ratepayer is the one that has to keep footing the bill for what's going on at TUD. We need other revenue streams, and I've been looking into a bunch of those over the past couple of years, and it's doable, but we got to make it happen. So that's number one. Number two is, like I said in my opening statement, I believe in grants and going out, beating the bushes, trying to find grants to leverage the ratepayer's dollar. We just cannot keep going to the ratepayer and asking for more money. It's just, it's not a sustainable model. So we have to go out and find other revenue streams like hydro, recreation, and so on. Like I said, it's all doable. We just got to think it out and make it happen. And I think I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. And Jeff.
Well, you're right, Ron. Rates, is this on? Isn't it?
Just closer to you.
Yeah. You're right, Ron. Rates are a touchy subject. You know, if the board at TUD and TUD in general has one thing that they need to do every day, and that's to produce the best possible water at the lowest possible cost. And that's the number one task for TUD in my view. Unfortunately, the state of California never sleeps. And they're constantly passing new laws and regulations for us to adhere by. When I say us, I mean water purveyors. I mean that with my Cold Springs job and also TUD. It's not cheap. It's not cheap to keep up with these regulations that come down from the state. And these are mandated. We don't have any choice to do that. We have to buy new equipment. We have to improve our testing equipment. We've got to do whatever it takes to meet those regulations. And unfortunately, that's one of our biggest impacts to our rates. But again, like I said, the TUD board and TUD in general, in my view, has no more important job than to deliver the best possible water at the lowest possible price. Thank you.
Thank you. And Jim?
Ron Ringen is right. We need a lot of grants. We need not only state grants, federal grants, and other grants. We need more sources of revenue. If you really want to boil it down, we have about $100 million worth of aging infrastructure that needs to be replaced. The ratepayer can't afford it. The state regulations are increasing all the time. One thing we've done just in this last year is try to consolidate the number of water treatment plants, reroute the water treatments, make it so that we're running maybe 2 or 3 or 4 water treatment plants instead of, at one time they had 17. You have to send a certified water treatment operator every day to every water treatment plant. That's a huge expense. So we need to consolidate. We need more customers. There's about 100 little small, I call them, not necessarily districts, but water companies, little ones. They need to be brought into the system, but they have aging infrastructure too. And some of them are really have lots and lots of problems. So I know, talking with the seniors, I'm on the Area 12 Agency for Aging Council, Advisory Council, and we talk about senior problems all the time, and water rates and getting it. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Jim. All right, Margaret?
All right, we'll start with Ron this time. How do you see TUD growing your customer base and their role in enhancing economic growth in our county?
Well, that is going to have to be a hand-in-hand operation, which we are now beginning to try. Back in 2012, Barbara Balin, our current president, put together the first that I know of actual meeting between the Board of Supervisors and the TUD board and the GMs and Craig Pedro. And that's where this is going to have to come from. The county and TUD need to work together hand in hand so that we know where, and they're working on that general plan right now, but we need to know where that growth is that they think is going to occur. And then the infrastructure needs to be sized to fit for that growth. And I'm quite honestly, I'm all for growth, but I'm for smart growth. I want, I don't want to see a Modesto sprawl. I want to see things infill. There's a fellow by the name of Lemke that just built, is in the process of trying to develop a piece of property with several lots on it out at Racetrack Road in Jamestown. That is smart growth. Sewer will be provided by Jamestown, and the water will be provided by TUD, and it's in growth. So that's my answer to that.
Thank you.
All right, Jeff?
Yeah, it definitely has to be a hand-in-hand with the county. I mean, we can't, as a board, we can't go out and invite people to come here and build houses. I mean, that's more of a county-type job. But we're here to provide water. We're here to provide water to our existing customers. We're also here to provide water to anyone else who buys a lot and builds a house on it. And I agree with Ron on the infill style there. If there's a subdivision that's to be approved, like down here on Jamestown, near Jamestown, and they go through the permit approval process and they're approved, and we have the water to serve them with, then by golly, we need to do that and increase our rate base that way. That's about all I have to say on that. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
I think that growth has to be smart growth. We can't just, like in the old days, you just built something, you built it, you didn't worry about a building permit too much, you didn't worry about, where it was, you didn't worry about water lines, septic lines, just put a well in, put a septic in. Now we're seeing the consequences of that. If you look at, TUD has about 13,000, ballpark 13,500 water customers and only 5,500 sewer customers. That means you've got about 8,000 septics that don't have water that's piped to them. That septic has to go someplace. So that's a consequence of not working together, not working with the county, not being smart about, we've got a lot of infill lots that could be developed. And it doesn't have to be, new raw land. It can be, just go up Lyons Road and, you see lots of lots that could be developed. And that's where we need to be concentrating. Thank you.
Thank you.
John?
Yes, the TUD and the county need to work together on efficient planning. TUD is a service organization. We provide water and sewer. The county, in terms of working with TUD as a planning organization, so that way it works hand in hand like everyone else has mentioned. The thing being is that TUD needs to be and continue to be smart when they look at these services, so the way the pipeline, the sizing of it can be efficient, so that way when they expand or hook up another facility, it's not at the expense of current ratepayers. And it's going to be done efficiently. And, but the partnership is between the county and TUD, working together, with TUD being the service provider, not the planner.
Thank you very much.
Jeff, we'll start with you on this one. And the question from the reader, or from our friends in the audience, is what should be done about the aging water and sewer pipes in downtown Sonora? And I'll add just a bit that how can they be fixed? What's the process for fixing them?
Well, I know that they've been fixing a few of them here and there, and it's expensive to do that. But unfortunately, pipes like everything else have a lifespan, and we have to replace them when it's time to replace them. I'm sure that everybody understands that. And so when you say, how is that to be done, I assume you mean the financial side of it. And that's part of the rate base. We put money back, put money away for future fixing and replacement of infrastructure. And you have to plan for that. We have to take a look at the system and see where the hot spots are, what's going to be needed, what's it going to cost, and have a plan for it. And if we can't do that, or if we don't do that, then that's when we wind up getting into trouble. So that's it.
We need what's called an asset management system, or computerized maintenance management system. Think of a spreadsheet. Think of an Excel spreadsheet, okay? Here's a pipeline. It's one, let's say, on Washington Street, and it's 8-inch pipeline here. It was put in 1920. It's got this size. It's got this remaining life. It's got this cost to replace today. Maybe it's got 3 more years to life. We need this for the entire system, and I've advocated that. The computer system that we're working on will be able to do that in 2 years. I talked with I've talked with several other water agency people in their areas, and this is the way to go. It's a managed system as opposed to, oh, we got to fix where the leak is. We got to wait until we see where the leak is, and then we've got a stack of work orders. That isn't the way to do business. The way to do business is a managed system. And speaking of that, we just approved the other night replacing an 80-year-old 8-inch pipeline in downtown Sonora. Thank you.
Thank you.
Infrastructure, that's one of those nightmares that every organization has. You can't see it, the pipe breaks. One of the things is it's all about planning. I know that the district, a number of years ago, put together, has a 5-year plan, and that 5-year plan was developed through staff and through studies in terms of where the oldest pipes were, where the water lines were, and then they laid out, based upon a budget line item for 5 years, the priorities. And that needs to continue and keep going. But you're still going to have surprises, emergencies. I spoke to a supervisor last week, who was out 2 nights last week, fixing pipes on Washington Avenue, middle of the night. But those are unknown. So the thing is just planning, like everyone has said, but you've got to have a plan so you can work the plan. And their capital project list right now is based upon priorities that staff, working on out of experience from work orders, my understanding, and told us in putting a priority together. Unfortunately, that's all funding. That's money. You take it out of the budget and you try and work it. But you've got to have a plan and you work it. Their capital plan right now is working towards that. But it only can do with so much money it has.
Thank you.
Okay, that's a sensitive subject, the pipes in downtown Sonora. They're over 100 years old. There's been several water purveyors that have managed that system for up till now. TUD inherited it when TUD was formed in 1992. And so the can's been kicked down the road forever. And so now TUD has it. Well, my opinion is that there is no way in the world that our ratepayers can pay for that. All we can do is piecemeal it. And what we've been doing, TUD's been doing, is trying to do the repairs when the city is going to do a paving project. So then we will do a section of pipe where they're going to do it so that then it gets repaved and it's a nice smooth street again. The other thing that I would say is that when I talk about money, it's not impossible. We just got through doing a huge repipe job out in Gibbs Ranch area with CDBG funds. And we're also doing a huge project down Jamestown with the same sort of funds. That is what we got to do. We got to go out and beat the bushes for grants and other fund sources like that so that our ratepayers are not have their backs broken and being paying for something that should have been done a long time ago. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Dave?
Okay, we'll start with Jim. And what is the solution to the long-term water supply for the county?
Wow. I think you need to understand something, and that is that TUD has the only basically non-cancelable in perpetuity agreement for water with PG&E. We're using about 60% of that water now, but we should never, ever jeopardize their obligation to provide Tuolumne County with water. Now, the other thing that we need to do is we need to look at the original New Maloney's agreement. There's discussion as to whether we're entitled to 6,500 acre-feet of water as senior rights. We've never really perfected those rights, but that's not to say that in good negotiations we couldn't work something out. An acre-foot of water is worth about, in the other areas, worth about $1,000 an acre-foot. So you're talking $6.5 million. If we could get that annually, that would really be a great deal for us. But in the meantime, we need to be sure we don't let PG&E off the hook. Thank you.
John?
Oh, okay. I was writing notes on it. Okay, thank you. Water supply, yes. Jim is correct. We have a contract, or TUD has a contract for 10,000 acre feet of water. Part of the problem being is that they still need to work with PG&E as to when we can deliver the water, receive the water. And in terms of out of Pinecrest coming down there in the summer times, there's some issues of getting water to fill up lines. The other part is the water we have, we need to be efficient with it. We need to make sure that our water systems are not leaking. We need to look and make sure the ditches are as efficient as possible. That doesn't mean piping them and gunnighting them all. That means going through and having an ongoing program for doing maintenance on them, because they do lose a fair amount, a large amount of water. So part of it being is we need to be efficient with what we do have. We have enough water. It's just a matter of using what we have efficiently and going through and taking care of it.
Could I hear the question again, please?
What is the solution to the long-term water supply for the county?
Okay. There is some things going on in the background with TUD, and I can't talk about it. It's all closed session stuff. But people are working on that issue, and hopefully there'll be a way to make some of these things happen. I don't mean to make this sound mysterious, but I just can't, divulge what could come down the pike. I think a lot of it has to do with negotiation and looking outside of the box and trying to take advantage of opportunities that come down the pike, and not being afraid to step up and actually, even though it might hurt a little bit in the beginning, to actually make it happen, because that's where we're going to get our reliability. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah, this is a big subject, and it's not an easy answer. But negotiating with PG&E, I mean, I don't know if that's what Ron talking about or not. But regardless, we need to stay tight with PG&E, and if there's a way maybe down the road that we could work out some kind of an ownership deal on some of those water rights and whatnot there, that'd be awesome. Jim brought up New Maloney's. That's another good one, and you're right, that does need to be perfected, what we can take out of there and what our actual right is. We need to explore that. We need to get that nailed down tight. The other thing, too, that John brought up was the water loss, and that's huge. If we're losing water from our infrastructure, like some of those, some of the ditches are, and I'm not for piping ditches either. I certainly appreciate the historical value of the ditches, but if they're leaking, we got to fix them. It's just like my kids when they were little, and they'd run inside from being out in the hot day, and they'd leave the door wide open with the air conditioner going. I mean, we can't have that. We've got to protect our asset. That's our only asset. That's the only thing TUD owns is the water. And if we're letting it get away from us like that, that's nickels and dimes and quarters just running out. How much time? I'm out.
That's it.
Sorry.
You're out. So, you have time for one more? Yeah.
Thanks.
And, this one's, about the treatment plants, and I agree, we have too many, but here's the question. How can TUD get the money to help update the storage of water and also retire some of the treatment plants? What do we have, 12 right now?
Yeah, Jim's gonna
Yeah,
start.
but we're working down to get that
Okay.
down significantly.
Okay.
And we've approved a plan.
Okay, John, you're.
Okay,
Okay.
we'll make sure. Didn't step on anyone. Okay, I know currently they're working on the plan. I missed one meeting. I know it was down to 3. I don't know if it's gotten narrowed down to what many, but it's a long-term plan. It's going to take probably 30, 40 years before everything evolves into taking, compressing those, because you got major investments with Tuolumne, Casa Grande, all the different tanks. But you need to start, you go through and you have to, I think, working at that, consolidating them, and you do put it as part of the growth plan and part of the capital project plan. You do incrementally, you start at one, you keep working through it. If you don't, you'll never get started. But you got to have the plan, and I know the board's been working on one. Hopefully, it'll get approved, and then they can be able to start it and start incrementing in terms of replacement. I know that the Sierra up by Sarah Pines was going to be one of the first ones up there, but I don't know if that's still the plan.
Okay. Ron?
So in 2012, it actually started well before 2012, but the board that was on in 2012 was working vigorously on what we call the T-SWAP, Treated Water System Optimization Plan. And that has just been voted on. It was really well vetted by the board and staff, and we now have a plan in order to consolidate the system. It's been voted on, it's done. And we also already have a couple of the treatment plants in the planning process and getting ready to go out to bid on certain aspects of it. So consolidation is the whole name of the game, but it's not going to happen overnight. It's so expensive. So I'll probably just leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah, Margaret, can you repeat that question? Be sure I hear it all.
How can TUD get the money to help update the storage of water and also retire some of the treatment plants?
Yeah. Well, the treatment plant question. Yeah, what is there? I think there's 13 treatment plants, I believe. And that's a lot of treatment plants for a small area that we got and for the amount of customers we have. You know, I think Ron brought it up earlier about getting the grants and whatnot. I mean, that's always a good funding source if available. And I would hope that the new general manager that's hired is well-versed in getting grants, not only for this subject, but for many more. But as several have already said, it's going to be very expensive to do that. But it's expensive now to run all 13 or 14 treatment plants that we have. So we have to weigh that cost as well. So it's something we have to look at. I'm glad the board voted on it to continue that, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you.
All right, Jim?
The state has a limited amount, the federal government has a limited amount of money, but I think we have lost, and we need to be working on a different model in terms of how do we apply. We need to be thinking recreation. We need to be thinking about other ways and other ways of qualifying for grants. We need to use Bob Rucker's expertise with the federal government. You know, we just have to be more active in applying. We need a person that does nothing basically but apply for grants and works with other grant agencies. It's not rocket science. You know, I've talked with Bob, and some of the water districts that he's worked with down in the Merced area, they get lots of grants. It's just that we seem to be stuck on the state model, you know. We'll get this grant or that grant. But a lot of these grants, you have to put in, you know, maybe 25% up front in effort to design what you want to do and apply. If you work with some of these grant consultants, they'll take call it on a contingency, you know, we got to just get going, and we've got to apply and apply and apply, and it's not rocket science. It just takes time.
Thank you, Jim.
I do want to mention one thing, though, about we're working on.
Can you mention your closing statement?
Okay.
Trying to keep us on time here. All right, and so now we'll start with each candidate and their 2-minute closing statement.
Okay. I answered poorly the first one about rates, and part of it being is that rates need to be, it needs to be cost-effective for our community. And I know that we're working on it being as reasonable as possible, but at the same time, and it's got to be affordable, but at some point, you got to make sure that you can keep the lights on, you got to stay in business, and you incrementally each year, you've got to do, I know people don't like to hear it, if you wait and put off raising rates every year and live with when you got, and at some point it catches up with you, and that's what's happened in the past. So part of it is it's smart planning, and part of it being very prudent how you use money, and my thing in terms of being very efficient with what you're doing, so that way you're not overtaxing your budget. At the same time, you know, I think that we need to be committed to have a sustainable and a reliable sewage and water system. I think we need to make sure that our ditch system is efficient. I think the water treatment plants, if they're consolidated and are done in a very planned manner, that would be good. Completing Phoenix Lake dredging. That's taken now at least between 6 to 8 years, and hopefully next year it'll happen. But that is somewhere around a $10 million budget, my understanding, between actually doing the work or more, and that will increase double the size of volume of water at the lake there, which is critical. The wastewater treatment plant, it's all about infrastructure there. That's an old regional plant system that needs to be, it's in the process of being reviewed. It needs to be done and make sure you're up to date. Am I getting close?
The clock is wrong. I've been keeping it on.
Oh, okay.
So you're closing it now. You're done.
All right.
Thank you.
And I have cards in the back.
Yes. And Jeff, do we have that straightened out now? Oh.
Oh, I'm looking at that.
That
It
will
says,
be
all
a
right.
minute off, you guys, okay? It's a 2 minutes, so that'll be off by 1 minute.
All right.
Go.
Okay, when I was elected to the TUD board 4 years ago, the previous board had left the district finances on a collision course, ignored the glaring infrastructure problems and low employee morale, all due to a lack of strong and respectful leadership. The previous board had instituted a 50% water use restriction that was onerous and only added more stress to our community's trees, landscape, and property values. Now, almost 4 years later, TUD is back on track, upright. We have stabilized our rates, the employees are busy with capital improvement projects, and we have reduced the risk of catastrophic fire through our tree mortality removal grant program. This translates to continued clean and reliable water for you and our environment, economy, recreation, and tourism industries. The TUD team is back on positive track with better morale. A recent example of this is our new GM recruitment process. I took a very active role in our hiring, facilitation, and recruiting firms that would do the job right the first time, unlike the previous board. And unlike the previous board, I made sure our community leaders, TUD employees, and those in our community were included in the interview process. And I want to take a moment to publicly thank them for their help, participation, and service. Your vote for me will continue this type of positive collaboration and leadership. I am solid, engaged, and transparent. I respectfully ask for your vote so that I can continue my work on your behalf in regards to safe, clean water and safe wastewater service. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, Jeff.
Okay, I've been asked, probably the number one reason, or number one question I've gotten asked since I threw my hat in the ring for this is, why? Why do you want to do that? And I'll tell you why. Because like I alluded to earlier, I really do love the water business. I think it's extremely interesting. And it's exciting, believe it or not. It really is. And the other thing is, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be right here. I'm a ratepayer now. And in fact, I'm probably one of the higher ratepayers. I'm part of the old Matt Dillon system. We have a huge surcharge, by the way. But anyway, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to live the rest of my life out right here in Tuolumne County. And I want to be sure that, that the county has good, clean, clear water for my children, my grandchildren, and all of you out there for that matter. And that's why I want to be on the TUD board. You know, one thing that didn't come up here that keeps me up at night, or one thing that really keeps me up at night concerning TUD is the flume delivery system coming out of Lions Dam. And I'm surprised there wasn't a question on that tonight, really.
There is, it wasn't drawn.
Oh, okay. Well, we didn't get to it. But we could go on all night talking about that. And we need a long-term solution for the flume. And that's something that weighs heavily in my mind. And I will be, if you are kind enough to elect me, that will be one of my top priorities. But anyway, thank you very much for coming tonight. Thank you to the chamber. And I respectfully ask for your votes. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Jim?
I'd like to thank you for being here, and I'd like to thank you for giving your trust to me over the, you know, I was elected in 2012, elected in 2014. I still have, I think, a lot of good things to offer in terms of the correct decisions. My strength is basically financial analysis, financial management. I was a management consultant doing cost reduction, profit improvement studies. I understand that, you know, the aging problem that I don't call it a problem, but it's a significance here that, you know, about 40% of our population is our seniors, and we can't continue to ignore the infrastructure problems. One of the things we're doing right now, I didn't have time earlier, but we're working on getting the land for this new water treatment route, okay? That's the first step. You get the land, and then you can start doing the design. If you don't have the land, you aren't anywhere. So that's the step we're in right now. I advocate balanced budgets, refinancing the debt. We need a lot of grants. I meant dredging Phoenix Lake came up earlier. You know, that's a project for this next year. But one of the problems with Phoenix Lake, and I got just a few seconds, okay? But you think about this, but a lot of those homes out there are on septic, okay? And that leaches into the lake. So we've got to really get some big grants and put more people on sewer up in that area if we can. Anyway, thank you very much, and I hope you vote for me, and your vote would be sincerely appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So the candidates you've heard today are looking for your vote, and that you've heard what they have to say and how they respond to the various questions from the public, that we made a big point to get the questions from you this time. We applaud all the candidates for giving up their time to speak to seek public service and for helping make Tuolumne County a better place to live by improving our business climate and outlooks. And so we're going to take a short break. Thank you so very much. They do have some information in the back if anybody is interested in that. And thank you.
Thank you.
So at this time, I would like to introduce our Board of Supervisor candidates, and I would like to start with Ryan Campbell. Ryan Campbell grew up on a farm near Tuolumne County. He is the son of an iron worker and a preschool teacher. He put himself through college at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, and after moving back to Tuolumne County, he married the love of his life, Haley, at St. Patrick's Church in Sonora. For the past decade, he has dedicated his life to serving the people of Tuolumne County through the public library system, behavioral health department, and as a former deputy editor of the Union Democrat. Currently, he is an administrative analyst for the Office of Emergency Services and is responsible for the county's tree mortality program.
I'm also reasonable.
Ryan, will you want to straighten that one out for me? You have 2 minutes. Excuse me. You have a minute and 30 seconds.
Okay.
I almost gave
All
you
right.
extra.
Well, thank you very much to the Chamber, and thank you all for being here. I am Ryan Campbell, and I'm here today to tell you why I am the best candidate to be your representative for District 2 on the Board of Supervisors. My wife and I bought our house on Phoenix Lake Road about 5 years ago, and that's where we're raising our 3 daughters. And it may not look like much, but it's heaven to us. And this is where we want to raise our family. This is where we want to grow old, and this is where we want to retire. And I think there are a lot of people here that feel the same way. I mean, when we know that Tuolumne County is special, and we want to keep it that way. Now, I work for the Office of Emergency Services on the Tree Mortality Project, and I have a lot of help, and we have great partnerships with some of the other agencies in the county, and I'm very proud of the work that we've done. We've taken down almost 8,000 trees that would otherwise have fallen on homes or on public roads in Tuolumne County. It's essential work. Now, what I've seen happen in Tuolumne County in the past, really decade, but it's become very clear in the past few years, is that we've neglected some of the essential services in this county. Our roads, our libraries, we have not enough access to broadband internet. We need to have these tools in order for the citizens of this county to thrive. And that's what I hope to bring to the Board of Supervisors. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. All right. Next, we have Lori Sylvester. She's a thoroughly engaged candidate who will turn her undivided attention to being a full-time supervisor. She has been civically active in Tuolumne County since the 1970s, a public servant teaching since 1982, served on Tuolumne Fire Protection District 7 years, Board of Supervisors 4 years, and is well-versed in public governance. She brings her depth of knowledge and experience to the office. Laurie grew up in Twainhart, and she lives in Tuolumne. Laurie?
Thank you. Tonight we'll speak on pressing issues. I'm Lori Sylvester, District 3 candidate, and I actively seek answers, but I do that by asking questions. As a lifelong learner, I'm really curious, and I seek knowledge to understand how and what other people are thinking. I'm inspired by rural communities that succeed, and I'm willing to explore their wealth creation strategies. Keeping my eye on advances in science and in economic trends, I imagine the niches that would fit well into our communities. And I need to know what infrastructure is required to make that development possible. My brother in Alaska has a small mill on his property, and he'd love to share our timber. I would love for many people in our community to see small-scale mills throughout our area doing the local timber milling, houses built of wood, cleared for fire safety, a resilient economy. If economic development is an airplane, others want to fly the plane. I want to build the plane. With campaign donations, I had a choice: big, expensive signs or creating a community service project. And so I created an emergency plan out of my own money, and that's how I started out this summer.
Thank you, Lori. And next, we have Randy Hanbelt, our incumbent supervisor in District 2. He serves on a number of important committees locally and both at the state and national levels as well. Most recently, he was asked by NACO to lead their Public Lands Steering Committee, establishing and leading national policy on management of public lands. He is widely recognized as a leader on the Governor's Tree Mortality Task Force and now the new Healthy Forest Task Force, establishing workable rules and policies, getting funding allocated for private lands, and county matching the allocations. Randy routinely is asked, sorry, Randy. Well, Randy, would you like to finish that one for us?
I don't know if I have a copy of it. Okay, we'll get started
Randy
anyway.
is routinely asked to testify in front of, it was on my other sheet, testify in front of service and national legislative committees and influences decisions in favor of Tuolumne County and rural California. Very recently, the new chief of the USFS asked to meet with Randy. He is putting Tuolumne County at the forefront of setting policy on forestry and related issues. Randy.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Amelia, and thank the Chamber for doing this. Thank you all who are here in the audience tonight for being here, and those who are watching on the live stream. I am the incumbent. I have a record of demonstrated leadership and proven results. I drive change, and I go after results. Every time I leave this county, I'm going after getting money and changing policy to the benefit of Tuolumne County. When I came here, we didn't have a mission or vision statement. We didn't have long-range plans. We didn't have a customer service plan. We have that now. Since I've been here, we have pulled in, either directly got the money, or we have commitments for well over $200 million worth of outside money that wouldn't have been here otherwise. I've changed the representation. Tuolumne County wasn't even on the map. Most of the people in California didn't know where Tuolumne County was. They do now. And that's because we go after things, we do it. The economy is the most important thing because that provides health, financial health for our families, particularly our young people. And so we signed the MSA agreement, Master Stewardship Agreement, with the U.S. Forest Service. We're now managing our own forest. We went out and got $5 million for that, and that sounds like not enough to start. Well, $5 million for us means $20 million from the feds. So that was $25 million. We're creating jobs right now, and we're running into problems, so we're already starting to look at training programs to develop more. Affordable housing and growth are absolutely essential. And if you want something to happen, I'm your guy. I make a difference, and I'm not a full-time supervisor. I'm a double-time supervisor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, and on, last but not least, Anaya Kirk is a 33-year-old second-generation Tuolumne County resident. He works as a public servant supervising correctional officers at the prison and also serves as a youth director for Chapel in the Pines. Many in the community know him as a soccer coach. Anaya married his high school sweetheart, Amy, who has worked as an elementary school teacher. This year, Anaya and Amy decided Amy would homeschool their 2 children in the primary election. Anaya received the largest percentage of votes. He contributes that to hard work, transparency, and his energetic, can-do attitude. Anaya is passionate about his family and serving his community. Anaya.
Thank you. So yes, Anaya Kirk, running for District 3 Supervisor. My beautiful family is here with me tonight, so kids, when I'm done with this, you are free to go home and eat and go to bed, please. But, born and raised up here, I met my wife in 4th grade, told my brother in 5th grade I would marry her. We're married, we have 2 beautiful children. Went to college, graduated cum laude in 2.5 years, worked my way up at the prison to promote and to be where I'm at. Last year I built my home. I was a general contractor, never built a thing in my life. And, I too like to ask questions, but at the end of the day, I'm a doer. I like to get things done. And I think I bring that to the table. And I think I'm the only politician running for office who doesn't want to be a politician running for office. And what I mean by that is, I have no backdoor agenda. I have nothing to benefit from this. My career at the prison is what pays the bills. And coming into, if elected as your supervisor, it really, to me, is a public service. It's a 4-year commitment to try and head our community. I think we're on good ground now, and I think we're headed towards a good direction. But just being a young person with energy, I want to see, I'm thinking about my children 10, 20, 30, 40 years down the road. And so I want to see policies and I want to see momentum that's going to facilitate good growth, that's going to facilitate a healthy economy. And at the end of the day, you won't have to guess what you're getting with me. I'm up front, I'm straight to the point, and I think I just bring some transparency to the table that we can all appreciate. So thank you
very much, Anaya. Okay, so we changed the rules up a little bit last time, and we'll go ahead and keep it consistent with this one. Each of you will have 1 minute and 30 seconds to answer your question, starting with Lynn.
Ryan, this is for you first. What is your plan for attracting new business that will bring money and jobs into our county?
I mean, that's the question, isn't it? So this is one area where I think myself and my opponent differ more than any other. My philosophy on this is that Tuolumne County government doesn't create jobs. We're not a job creator. We set the playing field so that you all, the population, can grow and thrive and create businesses and innovate. How do we do that? Here's my idea. We need to fix critical infrastructure in this county. I mean, everybody here drove here today, I'm sure, and how many potholes did you hit on the way? Probably a few. I almost fell into one myself. So we can't have a thriving economy where businesses want to come here if our roads are falling apart, if we have limited to no access to broadband internet. This is a particular issue in District 2 where I live. Much of that district lacks basic broadband internet. And when I say that, I'm talking commercial grade internet that has high megabit per second rate that can actually support an online business, or any business for that matter. We need these things first, and then we can start to look at having our economy grow and thrive and having the kind of businesses that we need to come in here. Why would anybody want to start their business here if they're going to have no kind of infrastructure that's going to support it? Crumbling roads. So that's basically my view of economic development, is focused on the building blocks of a good community, which is the infrastructure.
Thank you, Ryan.
Lori?
A different economic development. I really don't believe in reinventing the wheel. We know the model that we've been using here, but I'm interested in looking out into other communities, and as I mentioned in my opening, looking for ones that are successful, rural communities that really have succeeded. And they've moved away from some of the traditional approaches that we've seen. They consider local assets, and I'm talking about building business by looking at the fundamentals of the economy. They're looking at the overall well-being of the community as a driver, and they're using economic and they're using social data to try to build these forces. There's a good number of references that I have for it, but this one group, the Rural Wealth Creation Analytic Program, identified 8 types of capital. And in that, they also looked at wealth, which they defined wealth in a really comprehensive fashion, and that it needs to be, it takes stock or value of all of the assets of our community, so that we're really looking at what our assets are and trying to get the match for who we bring into our community. I won't mention all 8 of them in 4 seconds.
Thank you, Lori.
Randy?
Thank you very much. This is an important question. It's not an easy question. It's very difficult because it's multifaceted. But the first thing we got to do is we got to have, it's economy, it's housing, it's all the infrastructure. We don't have housing here right now. We can't, our housing doesn't support our existing population right now. Okay? The hospital tries to hire people and they leave because they can't find suitable housing. We need affordable workforce housing here in this county, and I'm working hard on that. We got to change our paradigms and can't do it the way we've been doing. We've got to change it. The Master Stewardship Agreement is already creating jobs, and as we grow that program, we need more housing again. And we do need infrastructure. But Ryan's right that we don't create the jobs, we create the environment for people to thrive. Read the mission and vision statements back there, and you'll see that's in there. We're trying to create an environment for everybody to thrive. So we've got to provide the environment where business can do well. And by the way, on business development, it's retention. We got to save our current businesses, help them thrive. We got to grow them, allow them to expand, and then we go to attraction. Attraction is the third part of that. We got to save what we have and make it good for them. And I'll stop it right there because we're running out of time.
Thank you, Randy.
Anaya?
So Tuolumne County, one of the biggest draws for money is tourism. So last year, $230 million, this year, $250 million. I know we got hit with the fires. So we have to understand that we're a tourist-type community, so we got to do whatever we can to continue to foster that. I agree with what Randy said a little bit when we're talking about the Tuolumne County Economic Development Authority. I've talked to Larry. We have done, we haven't really gone after attraction. And so we have a population in the Bay Area that is getting forced out of rent. They can't afford housing. I would love to see Tuolumne County and the Board of Supervisors come together and make tax incentives to go after these businesses, to draw them to our community. That way my son, when he grows up, he's learning coding to potentially be an engineer. Maybe he could get a job with one of these tech companies that moves up here. So I do want to go after attraction. Broadband, Trump, back in January, cut a bunch of red tape to allow rural communities to start applying for grants. And in August at the Senate, there's a $425 million bill that's being talked about that's going to go to the Department of Agricultural and Rural Utilities Services. So as a board member, I would make sure that we are going after those funds to match that with private enterprise and hopefully get them to lay some more wire. And then finally, just to make an atmosphere, I want to get the heads of the county in the building department and just in general. And as a board, I love to lead the charge and say, look, we are going to be an atmosphere. We're going to continue to go after an atmosphere of pro-growth and out with the old, in with the new, and let's look 30, 40 years into the future. Yep.
Thank you, Anaya.
Sorry.
Next. Second question, please.
How do you intend to address the homeless throughout the county? Start with Lori.
I believe in the homeless, that it needs to be a whole city, whole county, preferably regional answers so that we don't keep pushing them off from district to district or town to town or county to county. We don't just talk about the homeless, but we speak with them. We include them at the table. We call for experts with success in the field. We take a look at where it's working. And that's tough to find, but we do have people living up here and retiring up here that really have had some good experience. We listen to the volunteers that are out there regularly working and providing services with our homeless. And we need to include professional behavioral health clinicians. We need to include us as policymakers who are seeking a path of assistance and who want to remove bureaucratic obstacles, but frankly, don't include obstructionists or those with disdain to the homeless. They can sit in the audience and have their minute, but they cannot take over and co-opt the discussion.
Thank you, Lori. Randy.
Okay, thank you. This is a really important question. We know, we did a point-in-time survey not long ago, and we got 750 plus, and that number is probably wrong. It's probably closer to 1,000. What breaks my heart is there are a lot of young people and families in that list. The homeless is not an easy solution because it's case by case. Every single person has a slightly different reason and a slightly different motivation for why they are where they are. We make it difficult. I mean, look, the city passed an ordinance to outlaw camping in the city. That just moved them to the county. That didn't solve a single issue for anybody. We got to get together. We got to work together, and if we don't work together, problem. Tell you a quick story. Gloria and I helped a man we worked with him for a long time. We got him off the street. He was off the street for 3.5 years. He wants to stay below the radar because our system penalizes him if he shows up. They take his money because he has some old issues with the law enforcement thing. And so, bad winter, a couple winters ago, he's back on the street. We're trying to help him again, but it's really tough. We all got to focus on case by case, and we can't stick our head in the sand. And each one case is going to be different. You got to do it right for everybody, and not everybody wants to be off the street.
Thank you, Randy.
Again, this is kind of a loaded issue. I think if somebody had the right answer, we would see it somewhere happening, and we would say that's what we're going to do. But like he said, I work in corrections, and we've been trying to rehabilitate people for years. And we finally just started looking at research, and we said, look, the only population that we can research, there's a certain segment. So you pour your time, your resources, and energy into that population, that certain segment of people, and that's where you get the most bang for your buck. So I'm assuming it's probably the same with the homeless issue. Some people are going to want to be homeless. Some people are going to have mental health issues. Some people, what I've found through my research is that the biggest bang for your buck are people who are in crisis situations. So we should pour our resources first and foremost to those vets, families, young families with children. That should be where, as a supervisor, I would be inclined to pour most of my support into. And at the end of the day, too, it's a fine line to walk because I'd rather see the private sector, I'd rather see citizens step up. I'd rather see churches, organizations, like this bus that's going around giving showers. It doesn't cost the county anything. It doesn't cost the government anything. And usually when government gets involved, it's costly. It's not done as proficient. And maybe at the end of the day, we're all going to pay taxes. I do know my opponent had mentioned about building tiny houses for the homeless. I think that's going to turn into a mess of subsidized housing, and it's going to widen the gap for more people to come to our area. And so, fine line, but I want to help those who want help.
Okay. We don't do rebuttals.
It says in the rules
So-
that you gave us that we did, so.
I'm sorry, in that it was only if there was a, well,
It's when I've been mischaracterized, and so it said in there if they do a one-on-one, and when I'm mischaracterized, I don't like to let that allowed to be stood, because it sounds like the record and it's not.
okay. So. She has a complete, so she has 30 seconds to do a rebuttal. She has 30 seconds.
I can take less than that. He saw a posting that I made on my Facebook site, which I really encourage people to go to my Facebook site. I've been very busy looking at different things around the nation, and one of the ideas out of Austin, Texas was small houses. He's loved some of these ideas because he's been using them all throughout the campaign. However, he has attributed my thoughts and searching as something I have stated. We need to look at those ideas as a community. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
All right, so the question was about homelessness in Tuolumne County. So this is, I believe I have more experience in this area than anybody else here before you tonight. I was an analyst with Tuolumne County Behavioral Health for about 3 years, and I was involved in drug rehabilitation programs, AOD as we call it, and also mental health. Now, the causes, as some have said, the causes for homelessness are not simple. It involves addiction, it involves mental illness, difficult family situations, people in situations that we can't imagine. And my personal belief is that we are a brother's keeper, and that we must do unto others as we would have done if we were in that situation. And I think that the response, or rather the lack of response by the leadership of Tuolumne County to this serious issue is a major reason we need change on the board. We cut funding to behavioral health. Our median household incomes are well below the state level, $14,000 below the state level. We don't support the kind of programs that have been proven to be effective at preventing homelessness, and then we all look around and ask ourselves, why is homelessness increasing? That, I think, is ridiculous, and it needs to change. There are programs that are effective at this. Drug rehabilitation, there's something called the Full Service Partnership Program through behavioral health that's been very effective. We need to support those. That is how you make a dent in this homelessness problem that we now find ourselves in.
Thank you, Ryan.
I think I start with Lori. It's almost unanimous
No,
among...
Randy.
Oh, Randy.
Randy.
God, I got lost.
Thank you, Lori.
It's almost unanimous among county voters that the repair of deteriorating road conditions and work on proposed road projects are not keeping pace with the need to have an efficient and safe transportation network. What specific proposals would you support to achieve improvements in our county road network, and how would you go about funding those improvements?
Okay, that's a tough question,
I know
but
it is.
thank you for it. First of all, funding for roads is misunderstood. A lot of it comes from highway user tax allocations. Some of it comes from the SRS, Secure Rural Schools program. Half of that goes to schools, half of it goes. We fight to get that back every year. Congress has to authorize it. They didn't authorize it 1 year. We went back, and I helped get that reauthorized for 2 years. Okay, now, even with all of that, there isn't enough money. We've also faced the challenge of emergencies due to flooding and flood damage that we've had the last 2 years. We fixed Q and Mill last year at some risk, but we got it done, and we also fixed the escape route out of Cedar Ridge. Those weren't in the plan. We're right now and have a special meeting tomorrow to deal with Ferretti Road and the damage there. That has to be done. We're doing Evergreen Road. That has to be done. We also need to do Marsh's Flat. These aren't all in the plan. They're all road damage. So You get deferred in these things, okay? Proposition 6, you have a lot to deal with in Proposition 6. I think it's 6, that you have to decide whether you're going to go along with the governor on this highway user tax fee. 3 years of negotiation. I don't like the answer, but you have to decide. If we don't keep that, boy, it's going to be tough, because it's going to take at least 3. Actually, it's going to take 4 years probably to get another fix, and it'll come up again at election. So we all got to work on that. It's not trivial, not enough money.
Thank you, Randy.
So roads, how are we going to fix our roads? I've been telling people since the beginning of this, through my research, the roads are going to get worse before they get better. So there's not enough money. It's unfortunate that we're building $100 billion railroad or train, and who knows if it will ever even happen. I wish we'd, we're California, I wish we'd be better stewards of our money. We could use that at the county level. But what we can do now, go after PILT, payment in lieu of taxes. We were a logging community back in the day, and a lot of those funds transferred to our local road department. So big picture, master stewardship agreement, we got to continue to be at the receiving end of all those funds so we can, over the course of the next 10, 20 years, become another logging community that will put money back into our road fund. The car registration formula, I think, is skewed. I like the RCRC to take that and lobby for it the way it's a formula. If you go to my website, I break it down for you. And then, SB1, if we do repeal that, and I will tell you firsthand, I do not vote for another gas tax, but as a supervisor, I would like to have the money to help address roads. Let me make that clear. So if we do get that fund, we have to be very wise with that money. I don't want to be doing stoplights or lights along the road. I want it all to go towards our road fund, fixing our roads. And then there's basic maintenance that's been neglected for years, hot patch versus cold patch system for our potholes, clearing our drainages, our just basic grading. There's things that we can do to help mitigate the inevitable, which is, I think, dirt, gravel roads down the road.
Thank you very much, Anaya. Next.
So I've made this kind of a central issue in my campaign. I started talking about roads a year ago, and at the time, it seemed like the leadership of this county it wasn't even on the radar. I'd never heard any of the member of the Board of Supervisors do anything but a tertiary discussion about the condition of our roads. They have been neglected for, and I'm not blaming the current Board of Supervisors right now, because this problem goes back decades. We have, take Willow Springs Road, for example. Last time that was paved was 1985. I was 4 years old. Now, the excuse that we've been given is that there's not enough money to fix our roads. We have money to put into a juvenile detention facility that is understaffed, or I'm sorry, not understaffed. It doesn't, it's underutilized. We have money to put toward a jail that's going to be the shining example of incarceration in the mountain counties like ours. We put the same amount of funding into TCEDA for the past 3 years. And they haven't had a reduction in their budget, unlike Roads Division, unlike the libraries, unlike our Parks and Recreation, unlike the $35,000 that we cut from the Arts Council. So it's a question of priorities. What do we want in our community? Do we want decent roads? Do we want good infrastructure? Do we want the kind of things that people need to thrive and to get to their homes? That's what I stand for.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks.
Lori?
I need a new driveway. I have 2 conditions. I want it newly paved, and number 2 is I don't want to pay for it. So my conclusion is I'm not getting the driveway. That's it. We have the roads. We want them taken care of, and it's really important to understand Proposition 6 that you're going to be voting on needs a no vote. If you want our roads to be repaired, it's already a tax, by the way, that 12-cent tax is already in. This is simply one that would not only repeal that tax, it would also ask for retroactive repayment. This county is getting some $2 million. We can't take the pavement up and resell it. It's like reselling your tattoo. It doesn't make sense. We could have as many as $5 million coming in on this 12-cent tax. I filled up this week. It was $56. $1.80 of that went to this particular tax, the 12-cent tax. I'm certainly willing to pay that. That's much cheaper than managing all the damage that's been done to my car. So the Proposition 6, it's the no, because it eliminates the road funding that we have coming in. And if somebody else can tell us, but we haven't been able to all these years, where we can get $2 to $5 million, let me know.
Thank you. Next.
Anaya, you'll start on this one. Do you support TCEDA, which has been accused by this year's grand jury of a lack of accountability and transparency? And I'll also add, do changes need to be made in that agency?
So what was the second portion of the question?
Do changes need to be made in the agency?
Absolutely, changes need to be made. Best practices. There was a list of things that came out in that report, and I know the board was talking about it, and TCEDA's board is looking at changing some best practices, and there's a Union Democrat article where I made that very clear that I was kind of shocked at some of their practices. So absolutely. But, you know, we're talking about economic development. We're talking about, I'm all for generational planning, all right? I'm not thinking 4 years, 10 years, 20 years. And so I do think if we're going to go after economic development, Larry Cope he's a smart man. He's a very good, to me, he's a seller. If you want to sell anything, he could sell it. So what I would like to do is to take him, go down to the Bay Area, go to the Valley, and go after attraction of businesses. People, I met some people up in Oregon who work for Apple. They moved up there because they couldn't afford to live in the Bay Area anymore. And I said, what would it take for you and your 20 people that you just moved up here to come buy some office space and do your think tank out of there? They said, out of sight, out of mind. We would have much rather stayed in California. So I want to change what he does and really focus on going after attraction, put together tax incentives so that they come in here, they have a reason to come here for financial gain, and then over the course of 4, 5, 6 years, now we have that contributing to our local economy. We had 15 people move here last year. What if we had 20 a year and they were all bringing businesses and a strong tax base with them? That's where I want to see the Economic Authority evolve into. So.
Thank you, Anaya.
Ryan?
So I'm disappointed that this issue has kind of devolved into a referendum on the performance of the Chief Executive Officer of the Tuolumne County Economic Development Authority. It's not about one man and his performance. This is about how that organization has been managed by the board of TCEDA, how much funds are allocated for that could be allocated in other places to more effect. And it just, I remember when TCEDA started, and it started with some excellent ideas. It started with the idea of filling the vacant space left in that was left behind by Mervyn's, and it succeeded in filling that. And it also, the idea was to bring in new businesses and support the businesses that we have. But right now, all it is it's business coaching. It's something that businesses could be doing probably on their own. And it, unlike many of the other departments that we have in this county, has had year over year, I believe they've never had a single cut to their budget in the history of TCEDA. I'd have to look that up, but I know they haven't had a reduction in a long time. Right now, the county spends $345,000 a year on that. And I tell you this right now, if I have to choose between supporting our library and supporting TCEDA, brother, the library is going to win every time. And it sounds like a joke, but we are approaching a time where that decision might have to be made.
Thank you, Ryan.
Lori?
Okay, I support economic development. In my last term, I worked closely with the tribe in developing the casino, and they recognized me at their 10th year anniversary as being instrumental in helping to overcome the obstacles, frankly, the bureaucratic obstacles that do tend to happen. When it does come down, I concur, I don't talk about the personality of the person here. It's really about position, structure, and contracts. I put the accountability management back on the Board of the Supervisors since they oversee that particular position, that it's really a responsibility to consider the overall contract. If there's some flaws in the way the contract, or there are some things that we can fix in the contract, I think they need to be done. Regarding public records requests and economic development, Sacramento's been doing economic development for a really long time. When you create contracts for it, and that's where I think we need to look at the contract we have, if you have public funds and they're going to help people and agencies, part of that is when you're using the public funds to get your project through, you're subject to these open and public disclosure. That needs to be taken care of at a board level. Sacramento, it was just covered on CAP Radio, that a large development project, somebody put in their public disclosure for the information and it came out. When you have such proprietary information like the Coca-Cola formula, and you just feel like you need to protect it, then you need to hire privately to make sure you get through. But I believe our public funds should be used to help people get through that.
Thank you, Lori.
Okay, thank you. This is an important question. It seems to be in the forefront of a lot of discussion. I encourage you all to read the real grand jury report and not read letters to the editor and all this hyperbole that comes out in the various media. Some of that is there, but the real issue is there appears to be procedural and policy issues that need to be fixed. And the board, TCEDA board, needs to fix those. By the way, it is not a county issue. It is a city-county issue. It's a JPA. Okay. So they need to be fixed, and I really think that they can be fixed, okay, quite easily. But here's the issue. Economic development doesn't just happen. It's a competitive business. You compete with your neighboring entities to get people to come here or to retain people here or to promote people here. And that's other counties, it's other states, it's international, it goes everywhere. We need someone talented in doing that. Let me just point out one result, and there's a whole list of them. You remember the Mervyn's building? Big building. Amazingly difficult to fill that. He got 3 people to split the building. He had to do a 4-person negotiation. He brokered that deal. That was creative, and look at the tax money that comes into the city because of that. That was a good thing. Don't throw out Larry Cope just because there's other problems. Let's fix the problems and let's make it happen.
Thank you, Randy. Anaya? Oh, we started with Anaya. Yep. All righty. Next question, please.
Okay. Next question, and we start with Ryan. What is your position on allowing commercial growing and commercial distribution of marijuana in Tuolumne County?
My position is that I believe it can be handled in a way that will provide an important source of revenue to this county, but also not impede the health and enjoyment of citizens on their own private property. And the way we can do that is by very carefully zoning areas where cannabis cultivation is allowed and where it is not allowed. Nobody wants to look out their back window and see a large, pot grove. I don't know what the proper term is for it. However, I don't think this county is in any position to turn down a potential source of revenue. Now, we have some very key examples to look toward. We can just look north, and we can see an example about how this system can fail. We can draw upon that experience from those communities where this has failed and where it has succeeded and cherry pick the best ideas and handle it that way. No more complex than that. I think we already have land that's zoned for agricultural purposes. We've been regulating and designating areas for agriculture for thousands of years. There has to be a way that we can do this in a way that will be positive for all people involved.
Thank you.
And go ahead and repeat exactly how you said that. I want to make sure that I answer it.
Sure. What is your position on allowing commercial growing and commercial distribution of marijuana in Tuolumne County?
Thank you. Number one, supportive of medical use. Some of those medical users are not able to and don't want to grow inside their homes. So that sets it up. Recreational passed, we're sworn to uphold the law. We're not judging folks. Number three, in thinking about it, California is taking the lead, I would hope, in implementation of the commercial dispensaries. I can see the hazards of us jumping into such a contentious issue in this county before the state and the feds have agreement and everything in place. We could completely keep spending money and getting people really ticked off at each other if we jump into this before the state has figured out what the conditions are. So I want to watch state and federal keep an open mind on it. And I just have to mention that in our own ordinances in this county, we have the right to farm ordinance. And I've never heard anyone bring it up through this whole issue. It deals with nuisances and it deals with some of the issues that we've dealt with on that. We need to look at that big picture, but I'm really interested in seeing how the state and feds sort things out. We need the taxation in the state of California. If we don't have it here, we need to follow the state and make sure that taxation from, if our people are going to the next county, we need to get some of that to address the impacts in Tuolumne County.
Thank you, Lori.
Okay, I'll just start right out. I'm opposed to commercial grow of marijuana and dispensaries in Tuolumne County. And I'll tell you why. Look, if you need it for medical purposes, you can get it. You don't have to, you won't get it here, but you can get it someplace else. And if you're medical, I've got great empathy for you because I understand what pain is. But if you make a choice just to use it recreationally, that's your choice. But I do not want to increase the availability of that drug or any drugs to children. That is the wrong thing to do. We are going to enslave our kids in a drug scene, and ultimately, I think there's a path into the criminal justice system. I don't want that to happen. Excessive use of marijuana in brain formation years causes irreversible damage. I think that's the wrong thing to set ourselves up for. Let's take care of our kids. They're important. And I've talked to Colorado, I've talked to them extensively about it, and I think they wouldn't do it if they had a chance to do it over. And I will tell you that if you tax it at enough level, you go drive it back underground. I think the state is already doing that. And so I don't think there's any room for us. And finally, the demand in California is way lower than the supply. Humboldt County supplies in a huge quantity, many times more than the state of California, in theory, consumes. This is not a trivial solution. Why do we want to get into that mess? It causes us more pain and more costs later.
Thank you, Randy.
So it's one of the issues that got me to run for office. No, I'm against big marijuana cultivation. Prop 64 allows you to use it recreationally, allows you to use it medicinally. You can grow 6 plants. If you do the math, you can grow 36 plants a year. So you can grow all the weed you want and smoke it. I don't care. But I think one of the strongest things I bring to the table is I don't ever want to sound like an idiot. So I always do my research. And I put all of my own ideas on the table. I work in law enforcement. I read thousands of probation officer reports. I have thousands of conversations with inmates. That enough sealed the deal, but I went and I did my research. And all to say, go to my website, aniakirk.com, look at the fine print. I have endless research regarding this topic, but the best description I can give you guys is if you turn all the lights off on here, you turn that light on, all the bugs are going to go to the light. Okay, you can't control human behavior. You can't control human greed. It's a greedy industry. It's a money-making industry. And by the way, I do uphold the law. It's a federal violation to cultivate and to distribute marijuana. So I'm not going to put my citizens in prospect of violating federal law. And at the end of the day, I just, I'm pro-family. I'm pro-kids. Our kids are our heritage. And all my research is a definite and definitive no. Thank you.
Thank you.
Come on. There. This is a long one. The new master stewardship agreement with the Forest Service and the change in policy making signaled by the new administration in Washington regarding public land management has the potential to allow us to have more influence than we have ever had in making policy that affects wildfire hazards, water conservation, and recreational opportunities in Tuolumne County. How do we best ensure that the folks who have the practical solutions with a history of successful implementation be allowed to participate in and influence the decisions that will be made now that the realization that the failed policies of the prior administration needs to be corrected? That's a long one.
Wow. And it's all yours.
It's all yours, Lori.
I think you're going to have to
One more
really
time.
give me which part of that is the question.
I don't know.
Okay, as soon as you get there, I'd be glad to work on it.
Well, it says, let me see. How do we best ensure that the folks who have the practical solutions to this with a history of successful implementation be allowed to participate in and influence the decisions that we've made now that the realization that failed policies of the prior administration need to be corrected? That's all I know.
Wow.
It sounds more like a statement, but I'll work through it, okay?
Okay.
And I
And
know
you're
others
fine.
at this table have some information on it. So, the YSS Council, and I'm bad with acronyms with dyslexia, but the Yosemite Solutions,
Yosemite Stanislaus.
Stanislaus Solutions, they brought many different parties to the table, and they, for instance, came up with policies and agreements on, for instance, increasing timber usage. And so I do believe that that created a model that's been, and that I believe the MSA that Randy's been talking about, the Master Stewardship Agreement, came out of all these different, the environmentalists, the loggers, and the people that are otherwise at loggerheads with each other, really hashed it out at the table and came up. And so the question, if its intent is, how do you get the people to the table? That is how they got to the people to the table. It's a good model. It's a model to continue with. And then you have public and open hearings like we do with the Board of Supervisors to get public input when they come up with these different plans. So I believe that that's a pretty darn good model on that.
Okay. Randy?
Thank you, Lori.
Okay, this is a really important deal. This is the biggest deal going in Tuolumne County and, in fact, in the state. We're leading that effort right now. We signed the Master Stewardship Agreement because 30-plus years of neglect on our forests is what created the conditions for rim fire and all the other big fires you see in the state. Biggest timber fire in history until they had the Mendocino Complex fire. Now, it also created the conditions to cause tree mortality, and Mother Nature's clear-cutting our forests before our very eyes. The forest has become a net liability, not an net asset. It is not a carbon sequestration unit. It is an emitter, a net emitter. This allows us, for the first time, to go in and work directly with the U.S. Forest Service, and we let it because we're a legal entity. When we're using Tuolumne River Trust as the manager, and we're using Yosemite Stanislaus Solutions, which has a broad cross-section of talented, knowledgeable people and various values, and we're going to make it happen, and we're going to make it happen successfully. The whole world is watching Tuolumne County on this right now. They come and ask us, how are you doing this? We said, let us get a little success. We got 3 projects in process right now. One of them will set us up for the future. Some of them are actually going to produce some commercial value. Like I said, we got $5 million from the state for this, and that means $20 million from the feds, and we're going after more money so that we can make our forest safe and nobody loses. Water, environment, the public recreation, all of that wins.
Thank you, Randy.
So yeah, kudos to everything he just said. You know, I grew up here picking bark beetles with my grandfather at 5 years old and sent them to UC Davis because he told me of the things to come, and here I am living in them. So it's unfortunate that it took these catastrophic fires and loss of life to finally get to where we are, but nonetheless, we're here. You know, it's funny, we live in California where we regulate how we build our homes with insulation, with solar. We have to drive green cars and all these things because we're so worried about CO2, but then we get one rim fire that puts off more CO2 than all that crap combined. So it's nice to see California starting to put their funds towards forest management. So one of the things was practical solutions. You know, Mike Albrecht with Sierra Resource Management, he's been logging in these forests forever. There's scientific proof and facts that show that we can do it right. We can get everybody together, do it right, do it methodically. You know, Mike Albrecht has endorsed me because he understands how important this issue is to me and to this community. There's a ton of money out there. There's carbon sequester funds. We just got a $1.6 million vegetation management program. September 1st, just recently, there's $200 million set aside annually, and that's going to increase to $300 million a year. That's at the California level. We need to go after that. We just got a $5 million grant for forest restoration. Trump and Ryan Zinke we're talking about our forests. There's traction. So I'm passionate about getting on the board and carrying that flag and making sure that we become a logging community over the next couple decades.
Thank you, Anaya.
Yeah, so I agree with what others have said. The Master Stewardship Program is a good start, but $5 million is not going to solve all the problems that we have in our forests, and it's not going to completely eliminate our severe risk at wildfires in Tuolumne County. Now, I'll use for an example, Master Stewardship Program as well as the Fire Fuels Reduction Program, which is a $1 million grant that my office applied for and we received 2 months ago. Both have some of the very similar targets. Now, what the Fire Fuels Reduction Program that I worked on aims at is removing fire fuels from roadside vegetation as well as defensible space clearance on private property. There are many reasons why that's a good thing, the main one being your house isn't going to burn down. But what that also does is it creates better routes of ingress and egress into some of these neighborhoods that have very limited routes for people to travel if there is a wildfire. And it also helps improve your insurance and your ability to get insurance and keep it. Because if the county is buying in and if the state is providing funds in that regard, then we are able to use those to do fire clearance, defensible space clearance on private property, and that tells the insurance companies that, hey, we have skin in the game, we're trying to defend against these wildfires.
Thank you, Ryan. No, more.
I was trying to find a short one, but there's no short ones left. You've kind of touched on this already, but here we go. Demand for rental and purchased housing across all types of living spaces, prices, and demographics by existing county residents exceeds available supply. What is within the scope of what the county can do to affect the supply of housing across all price ranges to satisfy existing demand and provide for adequate supply of housing for families that may be trying to move into the county?
Yeah, that's yours.
Okay, that's a great question. I don't think we can answer it in a minute and a half, but here's the deal. Tuolumne County has a shortage of rental housing. It's a supply and demand issue. And Airbnb has sucked up a lot of the rentals as well. That's a problem, okay? We don't have enough affordable housing to buy. So rental housing and ownership are both a problem. We overburden with regulation the ability to do this. The state does it. We have to change that game. We have an inclusionary ordinance. We've had it for a long time. It has not created a single unit. It has not put a dime in the Affordable Housing Trust Fund. The last affordable units built other than Habitat for Humanity were built a long time ago, and they were built on the financial grave of failed development. Even Habitat's building that. They're the only program that's doing it, and they can't build enough of them. We need to change, and we need to incentivize building, and maybe that's deferred and reduced fees. TUD needs to get in this game. The schools need to get in this game. Everybody needs to get in this game. That's one of our major limitations to growth, major limitations to attracting business, and it's a problem. My kids can't come here. There's no place to live. I already told you that the hospital can't get people to stay because they can't get housing for them. It's a problem. But we need to look at modular housing. We need to look at more mobile home parks. We need to find things that people can afford to live in and make them happen.
Thank you, Randy.
Anaya?
It's the cost to build, which is why people don't build. And you can thank the people at the state level who are passing those regulations and putting them ultimately on our backs when we go to build. Perfect example is the insulation and solar power things that just passed. So some things that I would like to do, there's the accessory dwellings. Make sure people, when they have land, that they know that they can build accessory dwellings. Make sure that our ratio for development allows that on particular lots. That's why the general plan and the zoning code coming up is so important. That will allow for older people to potentially build smaller units. They can move into those units, rent out their houses, or they could have healthcare providers move in, or a young family can move in. So that's one thing. It's happening in Colorado. There's a study that I've reviewed. Also, regulations. I built a house last year. It was going to be a 2,100 square foot home and ended up being 1,197 square feet. You know why? The first $56,000 I had to pay up front was to all the permit fees and county cost fees. Let's take those costs, let's put them at the back end, so we're not scaring people off from building. They can roll those into their loan. For every $10,000, it's $20 on your mortgage. I can afford an extra $100 on my mortgage, but maybe I can't afford $56,000 cash up front. So again, there's state policies, there's county ordinances. I want to look at them side by side and say, what can we cut? What can we do to make it more conducive? Simple ideas like take pictures of the work that you're doing so you don't have to wait a week for an inspector, so your subcontractors aren't being, put off. I mean, there's just real practical things I learned from building a house that would make it easier for people to build. Modular homes is the future of affordable housing in California.
Thank you, Anaya.
Yep.
Ryan?
So about 6 or 8 months ago, my wife wakes me up. She always gets up before I do, and she says, "Honey, there's no hot water." So go into the utility room, open it up. Sure enough, there's water on the ground. Our water heater's busted. So I'm very fortunate that I work in downtown Sonora, so I just walk right over to the permit office, and I pull a permit to install a new water heater in our house. It was over $200. Now, you know what happens when, and $200 for the permit. Now, a water heater, it costs $500 or $600 if it's a big one. Now, what happens when you have a $200 permit for a water heater replacement is that people just don't pull permits. And that is rampant in this county because we need to adjust the fee schedule for permitting. That is one of the things that's holding new development back. Now, we could zone the entire county R1, R2, R3 residential, and people aren't going to come here and build houses unless they have the kind of jobs that pay them enough to be able to support that. So that's what we're missing more than anything, is the economic activity and the high-paying jobs. As I said before, median household incomes in our county are $14,000 below the rest of the state. Now, that's a lot of money. That is almost a down payment on a house. Mm-hmm. Those are the things that are holding us back. And those are two specific issues I'd like to take a look at it when I'm on the board.
Thank you, Ryan.
Lori?
Thanks, and at the risk of being redundant, because there are very good things that have been said, but I'm going to say what I'm going to say so that you do know where I stand. For instance, community development block grants had really helped this whole county for many, many years to bring many of our substandard homes up to up to code. And that, of course, increases what the home value is, but it also increases the standards, and it really helps to make sure that people can stay in the homes they're in. That money recirculates in our community. So as that recirculates, it helps to improve what we have. Often we've thought of the homes, I have to say, as stick-built, and I'll say that I think that pre-manufactured homes, multifamily homes, mobile parks, mobile living units, we need to have a conversation about them. And right now, while the general plan is being discussed, this might be a time to have part of that discussion about how we want to make sure that it's not just senior mobile parks, but places, if we so choose, and if people really want to have that, that there'd be places where families can have mobile units or pre-manufactured homes. The Airbnb is a pretty big deal. It's a business in a residential area. It's sucking up a lot of the homes that otherwise could be utilized for inventory. It has high use with no community connection. For some people, it's how they stay in their homes to have an Airbnb. But the next generation, we emphasize on fewer belongings, smaller homes, so we have to think about our density relevant in areas. Oh, pardon me.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so on to closing statements. 2 minutes apiece, starting with Ryan.
Well, thank you very much for coming today and hearing these candidates. This is what makes our democracy unique in the world, and it's what makes our local democracy thrive. I think I'm the best candidate to be your representative for the 2nd District because I have the kind of skills we need and the new ideas that we need to get us out of the rut that this county has been in for the past decade. Now, I work for the Office of Emergency Services. My main responsibility is the tree mortality project that we've had in the county. On a daily basis, I work with Cal OES, CAL FIRE, I work with the U.S. Forest Service, Bureau of Land Management. I'm very familiar with the workings of government and how to administer our public lands. When I was with behavioral health, I saw the severe drug problems that we have in this county and the homelessness. When I was editor, or deputy editor of the Union Democrat newspaper, I was a watchdog of your taxpayer dollars. So I have a great deal of history following the Board of Supervisors and how we've gotten to where we are today. So I am supremely qualified for this, and I want to bring those skills to the board for you. Now, I talked about my job with the Office of Emergency Services, and I love it. It's very gratifying. I see every day the positive outcomes that are coming from the work we're doing. And I'm going to quit my job when I'm elected supervisor so that I can do this job full-time. I think it requires that. I think it needs that. And frankly, I work too many hours a day cutting down trees to be able to do both. I'm very proud of my campaign and the people that have helped me. I'm proud that I haven't taken any campaign donations from PG&E, AT&T, and some of the major business interests that are in the county. And I'm looking forward to getting our county going, to investing in critical infrastructure like our roads.
Thank you, Ryan.
And, I forgot about
That's
the
right,
clock.
the
there.
minute issue.
Yeah, all right.
It's okay.
My name's Ryan Campbell. If you want to learn more about me, go to voteryancampbell.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right. Lori.
Thanks for your rigorous questions. I'm passionate about public safety, about emergency services, fire prevention, and planning, and that's why I spent this summer working on maps and drawing them out. I had help from Larry Bile as the basis, and then mailed them out to the people in our community because I care about what goes on in the community. I also made emergency magnets. They're for the whole county, and I have a lot of them, and I bought them so everybody, if you'd like emergency number magnets, they're back in the back. I genuinely want to lead with projects that serve everyone. We really have so much in common that we can work toward. We don't have to go try to find these incredibly divisive issues to try to keep that division in our community. We need to work together, and we need to find the things that we need to work together on. District 3 must have a fearless, independent voice at the leadership table, someone who's willing to commit fully to this job. It takes time to listen to the voices of all the concerned community members and to fully inform myself on the issues. Will my opponent be able to do the same, working 2 full-time jobs? Tuolumne County deserves better. The people deserve a supervisor with the time and the expertise to guide us through troubled waters. We deserve undivided attention. Undivided attention. And our resolve will not grow stronger by being surrounded by those who we agree with. As a matter of fact, it grows stronger by being tested by those who we do not agree with. We must establish these dialogues and diplomacy. That's the harder road to take. But we're a democratic nation ruled by law, guided by our Constitution. I'm Lori Sylvester. I'm running for county supervisor again. I'm committed to building the community through bipartisan coalitions, bridging differences by coming together over common needs. I emphasize over common needs. We really need to look at the things that we need to solve for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Lori.
Okay, again, I want to thank the chamber, and I want to thank you all for being here, and for the audience that's watching live. This comes down to a pretty simple choice. Do you want to maintain momentum? Do you want to make it happen? My opponent talks about knowing some of these people. I know the leadership in the state. I know a lot of the leadership in the county. I'm connected to the governor's office. I'm connected to the top of CAL FIRE and Cal OES. I'm connected to the top of Caltrans and other people. And when things happen, I kick down doors, if that's what it takes, to make things happen for people in this county. And the people who worked with me know that I do that. I'd go to whatever end it takes to make it happen. And I've got a proven record of results. It speaks for itself. And we have not cut the library, and we did not cut the Arts Council. We managed our budgets, and I can talk to you about that offline if you want to. But here's the bottom line. So if you want to ride on a path to nowhere in particular, and without real plans, without real results, then you vote for my opponent. But if you want to drive the results, drive solutions, and make it happen, and results count, you vote for me. I've got the momentum, and you'll lose it if you don't vote for me. If you want to make it happen in Tuolumne County, I'm your guy. And I don't do this full-time. Like I said, I do it double-time. I was working last night, and I work every night, late at night, doing things. So I'm Randy Hanvelt. I approve this message, and I ask for your vote in November.
All right, so as a citizen, when I go to vote, I got some very basic things I want to know. Who are you? What do you stand for? Are you competent? What are you going to do? Where are you heading? So as a citizen, I'm competent. I know exactly what I'm about. Yes, I work at the prison, and I'm proud of it. I had a prior county supervisor call me and say, you know what, the fact that you have a career that pays your bills and that takes care of that on the side allows you to come into a supervisory position and do the job right, because you're not beholden to an agenda. You're not beholden to some bureaucratic idea. You're not beholden to something going on in the background that everyone's trying to figure out but only you know about. I've been transparent since the beginning. I am here because I love my family, because I love my community, and because I want to see my community thrive. And most importantly, I want to see my children thrive when I leave this world and when they're here and raising grandchildren. So I'm thinking generationally. The things that I'm going to go after are generational. I'm level-headed. I'm cool under fire. I was on a SWAT team. I've written a book. I built my own house. This idea that I can't do the job, I've actually been doing the job since January 12th when I decided to run for office. I've been putting in the time. I think I'm running a very successful campaign. I've got over 160 people who have donated to my campaign because they believe in me and what I stand for. The business community is behind me. I don't need to convince anybody else. I know what I'm about and I know what I stand for, and if the community wants that, I will be proud to represent you. If you don't, she's passionate, we're both passionate, but I am a very clear message of good growth, of good economic planning, of being level-headed, making common sense decisions, and I will always do that. I will always be transparent, and at the end of the day, I will listen to both sides, but I will not mitigate the hell out of anything and not make decisions. I will make decisions and move forward, and together we can be, we'll bridge the gaps, and whether I win or lose, Lori's supporters, I'm going to do well for you too. I think you'll be surprised if I win how transparent I'm going to be with this board. So thank you guys, and God bless you guys, and Anaya Kirk for District 3 Supervisor. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to thank each of the candidates for participating in this event tonight. To access Tuolumne Cable Channel 8, our panel from the Union Democrat, the Tuolumne County Chamber of Commerce District Board of Directors, and the Government Affairs Council, who helped make this another successful candidates forum. The candidates you have heard today are looking for your vote. You have heard what they've had to say and how they responded to the various questions from you. We applaud all the candidates for giving of their time to seek public service and for helping make Tuolumne County a better place to live by improving our business climate and outlooks for life. The most important thing is to exercise your constitutional right to vote. Today's issues make clear the importance of our representative form of government, and with that, the responsibilities that we all have to vote and elect candidates reflective of your values and the issues important to you. Please make sure to vote on Tuesday, November 6th at your polling place unless you plan on doing your mail-in ballot. Thank you for your participation, and remember to keep an eye out for the Access Tuolumne Cable Channel 8's playback of today's TUD and Board of Supervisors Candidates Forum. Have a great rest of the evening as we wrap up another Tuolumne County Chamber of Commerce Candidates event. Thank you.